Manx Radio Podcasts, powered by Shaw.
Hello and welcome to the Women Today podcast, a look back at some of our best bits over the past 5 days. And this week we've taught poetry and protests. We've honoured the Great British Bake Off final and heard from the head of the Chamber of Commerce. And as October the 11th is International Day of the Girl, we talked a little bit about this year's theme, the power of the adolescent girl. And our guest on Friday was Kumar Menon, who grew up in India.
Kumar, this just really got me thinking about, obviously, the kind of international importance of this observance day. And we spoke before about the fact that you grew up in India, but yet you're raising your daughter here on the Isle of Man. What sort of differences do you see between kind of young and adolescent girls and how they are educated and brought up between India and here?
I think we are quite lucky on the Isle of Man and the UK, or in the West in general, where women and men are treated quite equal. And where I come from, when I was on my teens or my when I was a little, in my school days, for example. You could see the difference. Men or boys are treated different. I mean, totally different to women. They are kind of they foresee themselves. The parents are there, foresee that she's a girl. She'll end up in, she'll get married, and she'll be cooking, and that's her place. The kitchen, that's her place, and it's not the same. And in India nowadays, especially after the massive. The outcry after the rape in Delhi, it shook the whole nation, and it's not completely gone, but there has been significant changes. You can see it, and in metropolitan cities and all over India, Bangalore, Delhi, Bombay, for example, where it's westernization. It's slowly creeping into India, and you can see men and women are treated equal, and it is. You'll get there eventually, but unfortunately, it's not the same. When this day and age, it's still not the same.
Your daughter Leela is 10.
Yes.
Are you glad that she's kind of spending those important years on the Isle of Man?
Oh, definitely, Isle of Man. I think our island is so beautiful, and it's the best place to bring up kids. And I call our island home. I love the island and the people. It's a beautiful place, definitely.
And now we are asking, how important is the right to protest? Because last night, over 100 feminist protesters jumped the barriers onto the red carpet at the premiere of the film Suffragette. Now, that film tells the story of the suffragettes' fight to get women the vote. And activists from Sisters Uncut, who campaign against domestic violence, well, they attended the star-studded event claiming that they wanted to raise awareness about the cuts to domestic violence services. And they were seen to be shouting things like, "The battle isn't over yet, we are suffragettes," and
We'll have to be in your press pens, I'm afraid, guys.
Well, what they were shouting there was "Dead women can't vote." And one of the protesters told the Guardian newspaper the struggle for women's liberation isn't over. At a time when 2 women a week are killed by violent men in the UK, we need to keep fighting. Access for women to social housing, benefits and legal aid have all been reduced, and women are dying. I think it's fair to say that most of the film's stars were pretty supportive of the protest. Here's Helena Bonham Carter.
I'm glad that our film's done something. I think our film that's exactly what it's there for. Is that if you feel strongly enough about something and there's an injustice there, that you can speak out and you can try and get something changed. It's a perfect response to our film.
So we're asking today, how important is the right to protest? Have you ever been involved in a protest, or do you think there's simply no point in taking to the streets? Were they right to do what they did last night? Love to hear your thoughts on this. 166 177. You can also email women today at manxradio.com. OK, Kate, what do you think of the protest last night? Were they right to do what they did?
Yes, I think they were really. I think what they were protesting about, domestic violence against women, is an incredibly important issue. And I also think the fact was this is a film about and called Suffragette. I mean, if you even just put it into the context of what those women fought for, of course it was right to use that as a reason to come forward and make a stand and make a point.
I wonder if it was expected. I wonder how many people actually thought that was what's going to happen, because my initial thought would be, I completely agree with you, that actually you can't have a film Suffragette without having a suffragette type protest.
Yeah, I can understand that, and I can understand why there would be a protest there. My only feeling is sometimes I do believe that silent protests are a little bit more powerful, and women screaming and shouting things doesn't help their case sometimes.
I just wonder though if I do agree with you in some way. I think there have been some amazing silent, very, very powerful protests over the years. But in this day and age, do you get the attention that you are after by being silent? Do you need to kind of go over the top and, you know, go onto a red carpet in order to get the kind of media attention for your cause?
Well, it's certainly got it, hasn't it? Because, you know, you open the papers, you look online, and it's all about this today. So they've got exactly what they wanted out of it, which is brilliant. But, you know, if you're in London, there's a protest every single week. And all we think of is, oh, there's disruption on the roads, and it's just another protest.
But then what they're talking about is something that's incredibly real and is happening. You think 2 women a week killed by violent men. And yeah, we might just think, oh, it's just another protest. But for some people, that is reality.
Absolutely. And I think it's an incredibly, incredibly important cause to be highlighting. And to hear those statistics, I think we can often become so blasé when we hear those kind of numbers. But to use the platform of a film premiere to make a point which resonates so well with what the film was about, I think was incredibly intelligent. And if they hadn't been there, I think it would have been a real missed opportunity.
But I think we also have to say, because I was listening a lot to it on the radio yesterday, that there is, of course, violence against men too. And so we see the figures where there's 2 women killed every week in the UK. But how much do we talk about men that suffer with domestic violence too?
Jan Watson, what are your thoughts on the protest last night?
I think it's a very, very worrying subject. And so I think possibly, you know, we're all talking about it now. So it's had the desired effect. And I think, you know, coming from my sort of training and my experience with children, it's not just men and women that are affected by this. You know, you've got a lot of children are affected by domestic violence. So I do feel that anything that raises the profile again, especially if cuts are being made, and I think sometimes a lot of cuts are made to human services and services that make, you know, such a difference to these people who are really, really troubled. So I kind of think, yeah, you know, keep the profile up.
Text in from David saying, right to protest, yes. Civil disobedience, no. And it's interesting because people who've been critical about this say these women, they jumped the barriers, they got in the way, they put everything behind schedule. It was just a bit rude, really.
Yeah, I can see that. I think that is actually a good point, because I do believe there's a way to behave in a protest, and at what point is violence needed? And a lot of the scary things, you know, that happen in London when a protest is taking part, you want to stay away because you don't know at what point it's going to turn into a riot.
Absolutely. I think that thin line between a protest and a riot is very, very thin, to use that phrase again. But again, I think it goes back to that point of do you have to go that little bit further to get that attention? Do you kind of get more attention if a fight breaks out because suddenly all the cameras pointing at it and all the TV channels switch to it? So do you need that little bit of drama, that little bit of excitement just to grab people's attention?
So at what point does that make it successful? How can you determine a successful protest?
I think it depends what you're protesting against or for, because I think there's a difference if you're protesting for something or against something. So if you're protesting for a change in legislation or a change in legislation not to happen, then that's obvious success. But I think in the main, a successful protest is probably exactly this. It's getting the headlines, it's getting people talking about it, it's raising the profile just socially.
But then won't it fade away again? At what point, how far will this go? How much attention? It suddenly gets but is it short-term attention?
And that's the problem again, I suppose, is that if each time you need to do that something that's a little bit more dramatic, something that's a little bit more exciting, and possibly something that's a little bit more violent or risky, then I think that is worrying as it just continues to escalate.
Very quick question. Have you ever taken part in a protest, Kate?
No, I haven't, but I think I would. But I think I would want to really, truly care and not just be there for a day out.
Jan, have you ever taken part in one?
I was involved in a march for the NUT for years ago, actually, sort of trying to improve pay for teachers. So,
did you get the required result?
I think, as usual, there was a compromise at the end of it.
Jo, have you ever taken part in one?
Only with my brothers on many occasions against my parents, but I don't know if you call that a protest.
It is the Great British Bake Off final, a big night for many TV fans. Let's have a bit of this. You all right, Mickey? Tension is rising. The girls are walking into the studio. Nadia, Ian and Tamal all facing Paul and Mary's critical eye and taste buds this evening for the final time. So we thought, why not honour it with something that we like to wittily call the Great Women Today Bake Off. This afternoon, Kate and Joe are facing one another, and we're going to try the cakes that they have been slaving over, and I will pick the Women Today Star Baker. They have just entered this... Kate's brought in a creation decorated with lots of chocolate fingers. I thought the whole idea was that I wasn't supposed to know who'd done which one.
I don't think you do know.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. So we have Alex Brindley. Could you describe them for us?
Well, you've got one cake that is very on brand. I'm quite impressed with that. That is it's a white cake with... it's completely iced from top to toe, really, with pink icing around the bottom, and then the full Women Today logo cut out of what looks like either icing or marzipan on the top, which did say Beth, Kate and Joe on the top in icing as well, although, Beth, your name's gone a bit sloppy. And then we look at the other cake, and it looks like a chocolate fort, quite frankly. It's surrounded by both the normal Cadbury chocolate fingers and white chocolate fingers. There's lots of chocolate buttons. There's those silver edible ball bearings.
I love an edible ball bearing.
Don't need to behave yourself, Brindley. And then on top, you've got drumsticks sticking out the top, and those whistle sweets.
I haven't had a whistle lolly for ages. Okay, there are photographs of these creations on the Women Today Facebook page, I understand. Kate, remind us of the rules.
So the rules were to simply bake a sponge cake. However, there were no restrictions on decoration, as you can see.
Yeah. Joe, you're quite the experienced baker, really, aren't you?
I wouldn't say experienced, but I'm just basically 40 years old. I think that says enough.
Kate, you're a bit of a whiz in the kitchen.
This is the first cake I have ever made, apart from when I was very, very little with some help from my mum. So this is my first, and I'm not going to lie, this is also my last cake. It was horrific. I
think we all want to hear a bit of the text conversation that you girls had last night.
Can I just say, on that basis, I think she wins anyway, being the first time she's ever made a cake. Hats off, because we know how much she loves cooking. Okay, so the text conversation last night, we have to read this out because it was one of the funniest conversations that I've had with Kate in her kitchen and mine in mine. Okay, so it starts, right, missus, I want proof of you making a cake with the flowers, egg and butter. Photo, please.
So I sent her a photograph of the ingredients, said... Don't worry. Well, worry. This will end terribly.
Why? Have you cheated? Come on, be honest. I won't even mind, as you can't cheat decorating. Well, I don't think anyway.
No, I'm going to do it from scratch, which is terrifying. Okay, first challenge. Text Mum to find out where we keep everything.
That bit I was laughing my head off. I love that. Photos to prove, please. Love the fact that you have to text your mum, of which then I sent a photo of marinated pork fillet last night with roast potatoes and all sorts that I cooked for my son and I. Marinated pork fillet for Harry and ours dinner, just to give you a sneak peek that I can cook.
Gosh, I hate you. That looks so good. I'm so hungry. Might just eat cake mix.
Love it. Hee hee.
Just did the skewer thing they always do on Bake Off. No idea what I'm looking for, but it was fun.
With loads of flour in her hair. Literally just laughing out loud. Brilliant. Wish you filmed that, as I can just see your face.
I'm not going to lie. If this is even edible, it will be the thing I'm most proud of in my entire life.
Well, that says a lot about your life, my lovely. Oh no, my dog just nearly ate my cake.
Ha ha ha. And what does that say about yours?
That she's got good taste. Hee hee.
Okay, well, I'm glad
There's an insight into mine and Joe's life.
Gosh, we're all thrilled with that.
Just like you to know that Joe's cake actually... can we tell you our names for our cakes?
Oh, yes, they have names.
It gives it away. Really gives it away.
Okay, well, let me taste it first. Alex has rather manfully taken a sword to the cakes. You just looking like it was a bit of a struggle.
I can't possibly say.
Okay.
See what you think when you taste them.
Well, I'm going to try the Women Today branded cake first of all. Mickey, I bet you were so thrilled you came in today.
I really am.
That's good cake.
Good cake. That's probably
that was a very instant response there.
Oh, that was really nice, actually.
Okay,
I was expecting that to be a little heavier, but, it's good. And, okay, the other one. This just feels so wrong.
On radio, it feels so wrong, doesn't it?
Oh, that's got vanilla in it. Oh.
Secret ingredients or a bit of vanilla essence in the sponge.
Oh, okay, Alex, tell me what's coming up on your show, and then I'm just going to decide. Cause
You do look lovely, Beth. Your hair looks lovely. Your makeup looks lovely. You look amazing.
My script's hidden under a cake here. It's covered in cake.
Really nice.
So is my kitchen, Alex, don't worry.
Tweed will tidy it up for you, don't worry. On Alex in the Afternoon today from 3, we're talking to Simon Thompson, who's a psychologist, about why dads aren't hugging their children enough, and how dads need to do that more. Plus, in order to win flights with City Wing, we're getting rather saucy this afternoon. And also, we're celebrating millions with thousands. And who is it who wrote murder on the typewriter? All of that from 3 o'clock.
Are you sure there's not a bit more you could say? No,
okay. Absolutely fine.
So I have to make a decision. I mean, you're both fantastic. I love you both. I'm going to say, visually, if it was just based on looks, I would have had to go for the Women Today one because it was just very beautifully presented. But I love the taste of the other one.
Oh, well, there we go. Win-win.
No, pick a proper winner.
Cop out.
No, win. No, don't, Beth. That's fine. Just as it
winner.
is.
You're
As long as it's mine, pick a winner.
You're a fan
Should
of
we do
Bake
the
Off.
names now?
Have you finished?
Sorry, this is our show.
Obviously.
Okay, you're forcing me to pick a winner. I'm going to go for the one that's got the vanilla in it.
Oh!
Yes, I won just on the basis of vanilla. Never mind the effort of the decoration on top. Oh, Kate, you're a winner to me.
I'm hanging up my apron. First and last cake.
It was lovely.
4 hours, that, Beth. 4 hours.
Do I get to keep the lollipops?
That's mine.
Joe's.
No, I've got to give this.
Joe's.
I've got to give this to my kids. I'm afraid.
I'm really confused. I
No,
don't know what's going on.
There were 3 lollipops, 1 each.
Oh. Well,
But
it's very
actually,
good.
I think Kate should win because it is her first cake she's ever made.
I don't stop backpedaling now.
Okay, I won. Because if Kate had won, you'd never hear the end of it. I won. Joe Pack won the cake contest.
Women Today, brought to you by citywing.com for your next flight away.
In my opinion, today is an historic day for the Isle of Man. We have the first openly gay leader in our history. As I'm sure many people have heard on the news or on Mandate this morning, Chief Minister Alan Bell has been speaking to the Guardian newspaper about his sexuality and the topic of gay marriage. Here's Howard Kane with the news story.
Chief Minister Alan Bell has spoken publicly about being gay for the first time, making him the island's first ever openly gay leader. In an article in the Guardian newspaper about the government's recently announced consultation on same-sex marriage, Mr Bell spoke frankly about his long-term relationship with another man. He told the newspaper, "People know that I'm gay. I've never made a secret of it, but no one has ever asked me." Mr Bell is currently in Manchester attending the Conservative Party conference. Speaking to Alex Watton about working to legalise gay marriage, he told her it's been a personal passion of his throughout his political career.
I have fought for equal rights for the whole community from the day I first came into politics. I have supported, I like to think, most of the, in fact all of the liberalising legislation that's gone through, not just in terms of the Equality Bill, but in labour legislation, social legislation. I absolutely believe that the Isle of Man has to move in this direction. It's been a passion of my political life, and it will stay with me right till I eventually retire.
If it were legalised, would you want to get married?
I will have to see how the legislation goes.
Now, the part of that interview which really stood out to me was this line: "I've never made a secret of it, but no one has ever asked me." And it just basically got me thinking, should anyone have to come out, to use that phrase, in 2015? Joe, what's your kind of gut reaction, I suppose?
The phrase itself, coming out, gets me. I don't really get it. I don't understand why whoever thought of that phrase, coming out, because it's kind of one of those things that you think, why would anyone have to do it? It's like me coming out and saying, hey, I'm getting divorced. Do I need to tell the world about it? I think anyone who does decide to make it open and public that they are gay, then hats off to them, because they're being incredibly brave by doing so. And especially if they're telling their family members, I think that you must be so brave to be able to turn around to your parents and tell them.
I'm with you. I think the phrase coming out, and I keep doing air quotes, which are great for radio, but I think it's just that phrase really suggests to me that you were previously hiding something, or that you were hiding yourself somewhere. So I too really do take issue with that phrase. But I do think this is something that's a really difficult thing for both me and you, Joe, to talk about. It's easy to make a judgment as two straight women who have never had to go through it or really spend that much time about thinking about it. But I want to think that you don't have to come out. I want to think we live in a world and a society where it's acceptable just to always be out. There's never a need to be in. But I just wonder if we do live in that world.
You know what? I remember a situation not that long ago. I was in London and I was on a tube, and there were two young girls and quite trendy, and they were giggling and they were laughing and they were having a great time, and they were really attentive to each other. So they were holding hands, stroking each other's hair, and they must have only been about 18. And I mean, they were quite loud and gregarious, so they obviously wanted to be very public about it. But I just looked around and just watched everyone looking at them. And you could see everybody was staring at these two people because it didn't feel quite normal. And that's what I made of it. And even I felt slightly uncomfortable about watching them. And I suppose maybe it's because they were being so public with their affection. But it isn't normal, is it? Because we don't see it all the time. We don't hear about it all the time. I don't have many friends of mine that are gay. But I wouldn't feel that, you know, if I knew somebody, I wouldn't want them to feel that they had to sit there and really think about coming out to me.
Well, I was in exactly that position with a very, very good friend of mine at university who did sit me down in our kind of second, third year, and she told me that she's a lesbian. And I genuinely think she was a little bit disappointed with my reaction. I think she thought there was going to be kind of a big, long discussion and we'd cry and we'd hug at the end of it. And I was probably so blasé that I was just like, oh, OK, fine, let's carry on with our day. And I think she was a little bit disappointed. But to go back to what you were saying about it not being normal, again in inverted commas, is that why it is important that people do come out publicly, even still in 2015, that we have that sort of role model?
Possibly. I just hate the fact that these people are put under pressure to feel that they have to come out. I think that, you know, if it came in discussion, I mean, you know, we were just hearing then, and as you said, no one has ever asked me was the line that was read out. And I think that's quite a fair point, isn't it? Because I think we're also very afraid of asking people because we're not quite sure, you know, but then really, is it any of our business?
But then to play devil's advocate, are there some spheres where someone's sexuality is important to their role? I'm thinking, you know, somewhere like the church, where your beliefs and morals may hinge upon how you feel about homosexuality. And you want to know if the person that you're going to for moral guidance has the same morals and belief system that you have. So does it depend, I suppose, on which kind of sphere of society we're talking about?
Totally. I think, yes, you played the right one there by mentioning religion, because that's the one that comes strongly into my mind too. It's not one I'm able to discuss very well because I'm not the most religious person. And you know what, if there was a priest, if there was a vicar and he was gay, it wouldn't stop me going to see them. But there are a lot of people that it would, because it's not right in their eyes.
Carly and Miles, I'm interested on your thoughts on this.
Well, I think what it shows how tolerant and liberal the Alaman is, because if no one's actually raised a question in the beginning, it's just that people on the Alaman, they're prepared to accept things. It isn't an issue, and I think that's a really good thing for the Alaman.
Absolutely. I think I don't know if anyone follows me on Twitter in here, but that's exactly what I tweeted last night. Was that actually I was really proud that no one had asked him, because do you know what? I don't care.
So what?
Yeah. What about you, Carly?
I'd agree with what Miles has just said there. The other thing is that, because Miles and myself were chatting about it on the way up here, is that it's a question of privacy, really. You know, it's someone's private life. Do they need to be a pride into that as well? And as I say, the Alaman, you know, is very liberal in its approach. You know, is it really a question?
Well, we've had a comment in from Nick who says, "Hi all, agree with your comments 100%. Coming out implies that prior to this the person was hidden, private and therefore ashamed. A good point."
Our guest this afternoon is President of the Chamber of Commerce, Mickey Swindale. Mickey, you are the first female president. How significant is that?
It's hard to say, isn't it? I'm always a bit cautious about making too big a song and dance about things like that. But it is rather nice that we have our first female CEO of Chamber in Jane Deller, and then I become the first female president, and then actually, as you said, only last week, the first female partner at KPMG. So it feels like it's a year of firsts. But yes, I think I always like to see the fact that I'm a woman as incidental. to what it is that we're achieving. But I suppose it does show the change in society, that up until this point there hadn't been a woman who had held that position at the Chamber of Commerce. And so hopefully it's a real indicator of change.
Well, why do you think it's taken until now then?
Funnily enough, my husband was at an event in London yesterday talking about the role of women in the Western world, and they were saying that actually when you compare the Western world to the emerging nations, women still have much less of a voice and much less of a part to play in the kind of higher reaches of politics, the media, and of business. And when you look to the emerging nations, when you look to Africa, that's just not true. And I thought, I really hadn't expected that. You know, you sort of think we're at the vanguard of change, but we're not.
A lot of those countries, though, have quota systems in place because they are emerging and they can do that in a new sort of system. Is that something that you are against? You say your gender is incidental.
Yeah, I am against quotas, but it's something I've debated a lot with people because I do realise that sometimes you have to force change, and people do tend to recruit or invite people to join them who they feel comfortable with, and people who are very like you and the same gender as you feel more comfortable with. So I do understand people that are in favour of quotas, but I would hate anyone to be able to say that I got the opportunities I got because of a quota, because I was a woman rather than because I was me. And that's the thing that really puts me off them.
There are a few key phrases that we hear when we're talking about women in business, the glass ceiling being one. What do you make of that as a concept, first of all?
Honestly, I think it's true. I think the glass ceiling absolutely has existed, and I think it still exists, and it will only start to change slowly as women do reach senior positions, because I do think inevitably we're much more motivated at creating working environments where women can take career breaks, work more flexibly, because it's still the case, isn't it, that for the majority of couples, the woman is the one that is more likely to stay at home until their children go to school. And so it is going to be inevitably women who do need that greater flexibility. And other women are more motivated and more understanding of that. Plus, it's about role models. If you don't see women at the head of your business or in positions of power, then you don't necessarily picture yourself in those roles as well. So,
how much easier do you think it's been for you, Mickey, because you haven't had to take a career break for family?
Honestly, I think that has made a big difference. That's not a reflection on KPMG at all, but I think it made it very easy for me to progress in exactly the same way as a man would have done.
So the fact is then there are limitations for women, particularly those who choose to combine having a family as well as a career. From your position, having obviously, I assume, watched many of your colleagues go through that process, what would your advice be?
I think staying in touch with your work throughout, your career break or your maternity leave or things like that, maintaining those relationships. We have quite a big alumni programme, and so an awful lot of the girls who are off on maternity leave, even if they don't work for us for 5 years, they're still in touch, they're still coming to events, and I think that gives you much greater confidence about actually having the conversation of, do you know, I might quite like to come back, or you still sort of have those bonds and those relationships. So I think that can help a lot.
I think it would still be fair to say that the world of business, particularly the world of accountancy, is still seen to be a male domain. How do you inspire young women of the future to believe that they can be whatever they want and achieve anything in that area?
I guess by being an example, by being there, by making sure that women are encouraged, supported, motivated, given options that perhaps haven't existed before. But I think the most important thing is the example you set by being someone in a senior position in a business.
Well, let's talk about the Chamber of Commerce. What exactly do you do?
Well, basically, we're the voice of our member businesses, and a very significant proportion. I should have the statistics to hand, shouldn't I? Jane would kill me. But a very significant proportion of the businesses on the Isle of Man, and something like 15,000 of the working population are represented in chamber organisations. And our job is to act as that voice, because it's very difficult, particularly in a small informal environment for individual businesses or individual business people to make strong representation to government or to the media, because you expose yourself and other people will have opinions about what you've said. So it's our job to represent the collective and be that strong voice that says, no, hang on, this isn't right. You know, we need to take this direction or we need to take that approach, because if we don't, we're going to stifle the economy. And ultimately, Chamber believes that economic growth is the driver of societal benefits right across the board. And for the Isle of Man, if the economy doesn't grow, then ultimately we all suffer.
And how seriously is Commerce's voice heard?
I think very seriously now, and I've noticed it particularly, and maybe that's because I've had more access since I became president of Chamber, but it's been really noticeable that within the sort of first month or so of taking on that role, I was in the Chief Minister's office, the Treasury Minister and the Chief Financial Officer are having monthly meetings with us, and there's no doubt that government are very focused on making this a year about business, which is music to my ears, and hopefully will make our job a little bit easier. But I think they recognise that of their three strands of government, that growing the economy is the one that's going to be the really transformative one.
So take me through the role of president then. What actually do you do? What does that job entail?
So my job is to make sure that Chamber has identified the things that it's going to effectively campaign for, and what we've sort of said is that we think this is a very delicate and potentially vulnerable time for the Isle of Man, because we're kind of beset by enemies is a strong word, isn't it? But there's no doubt that the outside world regards the Isle of Man and similar jurisdictions with a very jaundiced eye, and has done increasingly over the last 5 years or so. I'm not saying that's fair. I actually think it's very unfair. But I think it happened because the G20 found themselves under pressure. And I've often quoted this, so you've heard it before, forgive me. But there was this lovely quote right sort of at the beginning of the financial crisis, 2008, 2009, when someone asked Barack Obama why this focus on the so-called tax havens rather than, the governments of the G20, all of whom were caught sleeping at the wheel, and the regulators when the economy went into crisis. And he said, when you're in a barroom brawl, you don't kick the guy who started it, you hit the guy you've always wanted to hit. And there's a lot of truth to that. There had been a lot of resentment that these small nations took the opportunity to take one differential, which was tax, and make themselves viable economies using that. And that resentment remains. But it's key to us. It's key to our success. We can't lose that.
How do you ensure that we don't, though, and still grow our reputation?
Yeah. I mean, the Isle of Man's done an awful lot over the last 3 years or so to position itself, particularly in comparison to other jurisdictions, as whiter than white. I think you can take that too far. We have to be a little bit careful about slavishly following uncommercial regulation and making ourselves uncompetitive. So there's a balance here. But we have done an awful lot. But we've also got advantages compared to other jurisdictions, similar jurisdictions. And I've talked quite extensively about these two things. One is our ability to be a digital island. Because of the growth of the e-gaming sector, our telecoms infrastructure, our power infrastructure, all those sort of things, we have a real cluster of digital expertise here, and we need to build on it, because that's where the growth in the economy is coming from. Financial technology, disruptive technologies, all of these things. We live in a digital age. And the other thing is that we are a large, not densely populated island, which has a huge need for skills. So population growth, working population growth, is going to be essential to our success. And Jersey can't do that, Guernsey can't do that, Gibraltar certainly can't do that. So those are the two things that Chamber think are real opportunities for the Isle of Man.
It's interesting, Mickey, that you're talking about the digital age then, because we've had a question for you on Twitter asking why the Chamber of Commerce doesn't use social media more often to get their message across.
Now, Jane would be cringing if she heard this, because she's not a huge fan of social media. I am, and it's something actually that Chamber are looking to change. Both our sort of Twitter site and our Facebook site we're working on quite heavily at the moment. I think it's absolutely essential. It's a really good way of interacting with people and generating debate, and so it's a good question and a well-voiced criticism. It needs to change.
Today is the 21st Annual National Poetry Day, and this year's theme is Make Like a Poet. I'm not going to pretend that any of us have got any poetic talent, so we thought instead that we'd share with you some of our favourite poems, the ones that really mean something to us. And of course, we would love to hear yours. You can write one as well, we don't mind. We'd quite like that, actually. OK, girls, so who wants to start us off? Kate?
Oh, okay. I have picked a poem that I have always really liked. It's one that my dad recommended to me years and years and years ago when I was doing my English speaking board exams, and it is a war poem by Wilfred Owen. Shall I read it in my best poetry voice? Okay. Oh, I'm a bit nervous. Why am I nervous? Bent double like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and towards our distant rest began to trudge. Men marched asleep, many had lost their boots, but limped on, bloodshod. All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of tired, outstripped 5-9s that dropped behind. Gas, quick boys, an ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time. But someone still was yelling out and stumbling, and floundering like a man in fire or lime. Dim through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea I saw him drowning. In all my dreams, before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. If in some smothering dreams you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in, and watch the white eyes writhing in his hanging face like a devil's sick of sin. If you could hear at every jolt the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cud of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues. My friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory. The old lie. Dulce decorum est pro patria more.
Wow.
Ooh, was that okay?
That was brilliant.
Beautifully. That's my English speaking board training just came in.
I think my favourite poems are always ones that really make me feel quite emotional, and this is one that my friend put on her Facebook page actually after she lost a baby, and it was just, one of those ones that really get me, and this is called Footprints. These are my footprints, so perfect and so small. These tiny footprints never touched the ground at all. Not one tiny footprint, for now I have wings. These tiny footprints were meant for other things. You will hear my tiny footprints in the patter of the rain, gentle drops like angels' tears of joy and not from pain. You will see my tiny footprints in each butterfly's lazy dance. I'll let you know I'm with you if you just give me the chance. You will see my tiny footprints in the rustle of the leaves. I will whisper names into the wind and call each one that grieves. Most of all, these tiny footprints are found on Mummy and Daddy's hearts. Even though I'm gone now, we'll never truly part.
Oh, wow, that's pretty emotional stuff there, Beth. Beautifully read again. I love how we go into these poetic voices. Suddenly so different. I'm going to change the mood slightly, okay, because it's a little bit different. This is a memory of my childhood. The Owl and the Pussycat poem. The Owl and the Pussycat went to sea in a beautiful pea green boat. They took some honey and plenty of money wrapped up in a £5 note. The Owl looked up to the stars above and sang to a small guitar. Oh, lovely pussy, oh, pussy, my love. What a beautiful pussy you are, you are, you are. What a beautiful pussy you are. Pussy said to the Owl, you elegant fowl, how charmingly sweet you sing. Oh, let us be married. Too long we have tarried. Shall we? See, my voice has gone. But what shall we do for a ring? They sailed away for a year and a day to the land where the bong tree grows, and there in a wood, in a piggy wig stood, with a ring at the end of his nose, with a ring at the end of his nose. Dear pig, are you willing to sell for 1 shilling your ring? Said the piggy, I will. So they took it away and were married next day by the turkey who lives on the hill. They dined on mince and slices of quince, which they ate with a runcible spoon, and hand in hand on the edge of the sand they danced by the light of the moon. The moon, the moon. They danced by the light of the moon.
That was beautiful.
I don't.
Can I go now?
I don't know why she's laughing. Alex Brindley's lost it.
I'm just laughing due to the fact that Joe's poetry voice is so different to the poetry voice that both of you put on. That's all I'm going to say.
I'm not even going to ask you for one of your poems because it was very rude. Just tell us what's on your show.
Excuse me? I actually had a proper poem prepared, but
you?
never mind. No, that's fine.
Thanks as always to our amazing guests. And as ever, it's never too late for you to get involved. Head over to Facebook, find the Women Today Facebook page, and you can comment there, or you can follow us at MR Women Today on Twitter. And you can listen again to the full programmes on manxradio.com or join us every weekday live from just after 2 o'clock.
Don't sit in the slow lane. Join the fast lane right now with Shaw's all-new Superfast Plus broadband. Enjoy more bandwidth, amazing speeds and the best value on the island from just £23.95 per month. So don't be left behind. Get a piece of the high-speed action with Superfast Plus broadband from Shaw. For details, visit our stores in Douglas, Ramsey and Port Erin or click shaw.com.
Love being Shaw.
Terms and conditions apply.